Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man podcast. My name is Rory Paquette. I am, as always, your very grateful host. Thank you very much for joining us today. We have a fantastic guest for you. I had the opportunity to interview this gentleman for my other podcast that I have going right now, the Podcaster Nation. He was absolutely incredible. And at the end of it, I said, listen, you need to tell your story on my podcast, The Power Man. We've got to get you over here. He obliged, made the time, showed up today. Before I introduce you to him, though, he is a podcast host and a father. So you guys are going to love what he has to say, I'm sure. Very faith-based stuff. Before we do that, you guys all know what we have to do. So I'm going to go ahead and take a sip of my preferred beverage. Here we go. Yeah, I need one more of those. Oh, it's good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Man, you guys all know what we're drinking. That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful. Just like my wife. They brew a mean bean. They do a mean cup of Joe. They do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they absolutely respect veterans and help veterans out, and that's hugely important to us here at Power Man. You guys all know that. Uh, they support veterans. We support them. Go check out Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. One more sip of this because I think I have a hard time keeping up with this young buck in front of me. And there we go. All right. All right. So this guy is a podcaster. He's a father. He's a husband. He's a great all around guy. And I'm so glad that he's with us today. Please welcome to the podcast the host of the Compass Chronicles, Javier Malave. Javier,
Hey,
how you doing, brother?
good, brother. How are you, Roy? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, man. I really do.
No, I'm glad you're here today. I really am. We had a great conversation last time, and
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking forward to a little bit of a different
Sure.
stint on this one because we're not going to spend so much time on podcasting. That was for the other pod.
Sure.
But do tell our audience in case they don't know who you are yet. I know you're part of our group, Power Man Within, which is awesome. Love having you in that. So some people are going to know you from that already. But who is Javier? What are you about, brother? And what brings you here today?
Well, I'm Javier Malave. I am a born and bred New Yorker. Lived in New York my whole life, not going anywhere anytime soon. Um, I have been married for 31 years to an amazing woman named Daisy. I have two children, grown. I am a survivor of Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a neurological disease. Um, and I've been a podcaster now for about, I'm going to say 3 years in general, really doing it. Obviously, I dabbed into it prior to that and did a lot of changes, as we spoke before. I've I've changed my podcast almost as much as I changed my t-shirt sometimes because I just think things so more in my head so many times. Um, Hopefully this will be the last iteration of the podcast. I don't know where God's going to take us, but yeah, I am planning to go back to Bible college due to my classes being in New York. My church offers a Bible college course, New York School of the Bible. So I'm looking to doing that at the end of the summer when they do that. Um, so I don't know what you want me to say, but I can start from, well, let's talk about what it is to be married for 31 years, right?
Hey, I
Uh,
love that. That's a great place
that-
to start. So many
yeah.
people don't make it that far, brother. I
Oh
mean,
no, me and my wife sometimes look at us and like, how only by the grace of God
mhm.
are we together for 31 years.
Yeah, how has she put up with you all this time? I mean,
I
really,
have
I'd like to
no
know.
idea. I tell her all the time. I ask her all the time, like, wait, are you sure? You sure? I used to tell her all the time because my wife is 10 years older than me. So I always tell her when I was young, I said, you could have been my babysitter. You cradle robbed. You're a cradle robber, you know? And she looks at me like, yeah, right. Who stole who first? Like who did the deed first, And yeah, just to get going, I met my wife I used to work at Christian Publications, which is the biggest Christian bookstore at the time in New York City,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
only one back then. And I worked in the music department, and she came in there looking for at the time, Christian rock was starting to get into the scene more of a hardcore metal. So if people aren't aware, like Stripe or Blood Good, all these bands were, as we called them back then, hair metal bands, but they were Christian hair metal bands. And she was looking for a cassette. That's going to show you my age now. A cassette for a band called Bloodgood. And we started a conversation, and she came in with her hair all spiked up and black eyeliner. And at the time, women wore high heat, she was all punked out. And I just thought it was the coolest thing because I'm coming from a very conservative Pentecostal background, starting to like heavy metal music and Stripe and stuff we weren't allowed to hear. And this woman comes in looking amazing, and then I'm saying like, "Wow, that's pretty cool, man." So I took my shot and I asked her out, and she said, no, straight out, no. I don't blame her. At the time, I wasn't I guess, I mean, I weighed almost 300 and something pounds at the time. Um, yeah, I was
Oh,
a
you're
hot,
kidding.
yeah, I was a hot mess in my 20s, all the way up to my 40s. Actually, I was overweight and really, really sick.
I
I
mean,
just,
you're a slim cat now. I mean,
yeah, this is all
I never
part.
would have guessed. Wow.
Yeah, it's part of obviously the disease. Obviously, I was a vegan. I became a vegan for about 7 years
Mhm.
before I went back into eating protein and meat because of my sickness.
Mhm.
So I had lost a lot of weight and I started to learn how to eat and stuff like that. But previous to that, oh man, I would go into, and if there was a contest, I would do it. Like I didn't care. Like it was the worst food in the world. I didn't care. I'd try it. I was always want to try. I was a foodie. I loved everything about food and the atmosphere. Obviously, I didn't, at the time I was 18, 19, so I didn't have the funds to go everywhere. So you ate the crappy food, Back then,
Right.
you got a Big Mac and soda and chicken nuggets for $2. You know what I mean? Like, hey, why not? You know?
Exactly.
Um, but I think they were made a lot different than they were made today. I think they were a lot healthier, I have to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So anyway, to cut, because I can bounce around and you can stop me anytime because I'll bounce all
That's
over.
okay. So you're heavy. You're asking this gal out.
Yeah.
She walks in looking hot and punk and everything else. You're just like,
Yeah.
wow, and she goes,
That,
no.
no, right. She straight up goes, no. And I believe if I'm correct, and if she hears this and I'm wrong, she's gonna kill me. But I think she was dating someone at the time.
Okay.
Um, and so I respected that. I mean, obviously that showed me a little bit of who she was, that she didn't take the bait or whatever the point may be, or flirted back or anything like that. That's something I've always looked at with other people I've dated and stuff. If I know they're in a relationship and they kind of still fall for what I'm saying, then I know that if they can do it to that, they can do it to me. So I
Right.
would probably just stay away. Um, and she got the cassette, obviously, and she came back like about 2 or 3 weeks later, came back looking for another, and this time she came with her mom. Her mom, I mean, I didn't get to enjoy her as much as I wanted to. She died about a year or two into our marriage.
I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, she was already in her 70s. She died of I believe it was uterine cancer.
Oof.
Um, so I didn't get to enjoy her as much, but she was the smallest little thing. Like, if we look one day when you meet my wife, you'll see her and you'll see my mother-in-law. She looks exactly like her mom. Um, so anyway, she came with her mom and everything. Now, obviously, I helped her and I asked her out again, and she said, no, again, no,
Okay, so that's two.
that's true.
Okay.
So I said, I'm not going for three because I don't want to strike out. Let me just leave it alone. So it was a while before, I think it was almost a year later. Um, I was in another relationship with someone else, and she called me up to see if I wanted to go see a band, Striper. They were playing at Radio City Music Hall, and this is 1988,
Hmm.
the summer of 1988. We still have the ticket stubs. So at that time, I was separated from the person I was with or whatever. And so I said, why not? I love Striper. It's to see them, live. So we went to the concert. It was a lot of fun. We both came out of there deaf because they sat us right like near back then there was no idea of putting anything in your ears. You just went to the concert, got your ears blown out. That was fun stuff, right?
Yeah,
The
in the
louder the
80s
concert, the
we
better.
didn't
Yeah.
know.
There
We
was no
didn't know yet.
ear safety. No, get out of here. You left there pretty much deaf.
Yeah.
Uh, but And we just started talking from there, and we went out a couple of times, um, and we separated again. We just, we were friends. We Nothing came of it. It was just a fun person to be with, and she liked the music I liked and stuff. Um, we separated, and I moved to Long Island City. My first apartment in Long Island City. Well, it wasn't really an apartment. Back then, they were furnished rooms. Now, if any of your uh, people that watch you are young, they wouldn't know what a furnished room is in New York City. It is a room that was already came with a bed, a light, and a drawer, and you shared the kitchen with about 10 other guys.
Yep.
So it's almost like living in a dorm.
Dorm room.
Right. Right. But you paid every week for that dorm. And
Right.
back then it was which was a lot back then. It was $75 a week. Now, for a guy who was making minimum wage
Yep.
back then, that was a lot. That was a lot of rent.
Yeah.
But so eventually, we I went my own way. Lived in Long Island City for a while. Didn't have a good experience in Long Island City. Had a rough time trying just to manage money and stuff like that. You're talking in the 80s, unless you were doing stuff that's illegal, you're really not making any money back then.
Right.
I love when people say, "Oh yeah, I made a lot of money in the 80s." Yeah, doing what? Either you were on Wall Street or dealing drugs because no one else was making money. Not in New York anyway. No one was making money. You got minimum wage. You were lucky. And there were no things like we have today, which is Uber and deliveries and all. There was none of that.
No.
No, you
No.
just
There
had
was no online to make money
no,
on. No.
exactly.
No.
If the
No
guy
podcasting.
at the pizza shop said, "Hey, you want to deliver this for me?" and he gave you $3, you were happy. You took it and you
Yep.
delivered, you got $3.
Yep.
You know, my first job to make everyone laugh, we lived in Williamsburg, New York. And back then it still is a Hasidic area. It's if Hasidim, the Jewish
Hmm.
people, and they're very strict in everything they do. And we literally were one of the first Spanish families to live in a tenement building when I grew up. I grew up on Keefe Street in Williamsburg, New York. Shout out to my Brooklyn people. Um, and we remember that they were, how do you call it? They wouldn't work on Saturdays because that was the Sabbath.
That's their Sabbath. Yeah.
Right, their Sabbath. And I would make tons of money because they would pay me to turn on a light, to move this, to move, because they're not allowed to touch anything. And I lived right next door to the synagogue. So the rabbi knew me and knew most of the guys around because we were always in the block. And he would ask us, here's $5. Can you just go move this box here? Sometimes we would make $30, and $30 back in the 70s, early 80s was a lot of money.
Yep.
We went to movies, we bought soda, candy, everything. Um, so lost my track of thought, but we were
Well, you were talking about how your wife, said no to you the second time, but then actually called you and took you out.
it took
Then
me
you guys separated again, and then you
right.
started talking about how cheap everything is, and I'm with you. But
Yeah.
how'd you get back with the wife?
Well, I actually was having rough time. I had to move back to my mom's house. Um, at I was really in a bad place. I was drinking a lot,
Hmm.
doing drugs, and just not being responsible. I had lost, and I'm not ashamed to say it because we all make mistakes, and this
Yeah.
is how people learn. I've lost apartments. I've had stuff. I've lost cars that they've taken because I
Sure.
haven't made payments. So things like that. It's stuff that you wish you would have learned that now you would have known 20, 30 years ago. But hindsight is 2020, as they say.
Well, of course. Yeah.
But so I was having a really, really bad time, and I got into a relationship with someone, and that person became pregnant. Obviously, I wasn't ready for that, um, but I was accepting it. I said, you know what? My dad stepped up to the plate. Obviously, they did it the right way. They were married. They did everything the normal way. But I then, I saw my father, and I said, yeah, if it's mine, and I'll be responsible. I have no problem with that. Um, it was difficult because the young lady was of a different race, and the father was very prejudiced towards me. She was very white, and I was very dark. So, he wasn't very happy about it, obviously. Um, But unfortunately, she lost the baby, uh, miscarried,
Hmm.
and the relationship kind of went down from there. Um, and Daisy called, just called out of nowhere, just to. Back then, we didn't have cell phones. We had beepers, or you would get beeped, or they would call you home. They would call directly on your phone line. So she called my mom's house and asked if I was there, and I spoke to her, and we just started talking, and we just went out again. We just started to talk again and stuff like that. And
So she reached back out to you.
yeah, she had reached out to me because I was still working at Christian Pub, and she was coming by, and she would see me, or I would just say hello, or I think she just felt that I wasn't really in the right space at the time. So she kind of reached out as a friend, which I appreciate that till this day, you
Huh.
know. So we started going out and everything, and one night, and now I'm not gonna lie about it, but I drank. I really, really had a bad episode. Um, and I called Daisy and I asked her to marry me. I was drunk out of my mind. I had nothing to offer, nothing. I didn't even have a place of my own. And this is what God does. She said yes. He said yes. Now, I always bother people and say, who is worse, me for asking over the phone or her saying yes over the phone? So that's a debate we both have. Which one was worse? I always
That's
tell her, honey, I was really drunk when I said, can you marry me? And she goes, no, you weren't. I said, yes, I was. And I go, well, then that's the one thing that alcohol did well was come and ask you to marry me. And we're talking 31 years later, right?
right.
Uh, but it was rough. We did get married. We got married through City Hall. You know, my mom came to be a witness with us. My mom cried on the train. She goes, if I wouldn't have cried on the train, I wouldn't have cried at all because the ceremony was like 5 minutes. Do you, yes, yes, and that's it. Uh,
Sign here. Goodbye.
yeah,
Right.
sign here and whatever. I think it took longer to get the license than it took for the ceremony. Uh,
Right.
you know,
Good old
so
City Hall. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And we got married, and we actually never even had a place to live. We went to move into her one. She shared an apartment with her roommate, and we moved into, or I moved into her her room basically. And we did that for about 3 weeks, like that, which is the weirdest thing because we're gonna be real here. How do you consummate your marriage, or how do you do anything with roommate there? And you really can't be comfortable, and you really don't get to know the person that you're married because you know you're in a situation where you don't really want to be in, and it can cause a lot of tension and a lot of um, un unsureness, if that's a word,
Sure.
insecurity,
Yeah.
especially me as a man, that we're taught to provide and make sure that our wives are protected and things like that. Um, and we just, she was a Christian at the time and a very big Christian. I was, but I dabbled. I really wasn't following or doing what I'm, supposed to do. And God opened up the doors for us to move to New Jersey, to Guttenberg, New Jersey, this 4 block, 4 wide town in New Jersey, which is the next town over North Bergen. And so if you look over the Hudson River, when you look at the outside, that's West New York, North Bergen, and Guttenberg. Guttenberg is 4 blocks long, 4 blocks wide, has their own police department, their own lawyers, their own judges. I mean, I felt like I was in the middle of a hillbilly town with nothing around you, but this was the city. This was in them. We got an apartment there, and we just she we moved there, and obviously it was rough because I was working at a, what do you call it, a not a warehouse, but it was almost like a Home Depot back in the time,
Okay.
but it was just selling. I was a seller on the floor, making. And then at that time they didn't pay us on the books; they paid us off the books. So we were making, no pay, no taxes. It was just like he could fire you, hire you, wherever. At the time, you made your money wherever you could make your money. That's one
Right.
thing I have to say about myself. I always hustled.
Yeah.
I never was not working. I always worked.
Right.
Be it whatever, be it legally, illegally, I worked. And we had a rough time in the beginning, because that's when we really started to learn about each other and about our likes and dislikes. And, like they say, you really don't know anyone until you really live with them. And when we really started living with each other, it was a little rough, a little, I'm set in my ways and she's set in her ways. And um, I'm really streets wise. And I lived in the street. My wife was very protected. She really had no street knowledge, no real world knowledge in a sense like that. So that
I
was a
mean,
little frustrating.
clearly she didn't have a lot of street smarts because she said yes to a drunk
Yes,
guy who
there
asked
you
her
go,
to
for sure.
marry her.
I
So,
tell her all the time, you sure you weren't the one that's drunk and said yes to me?
mhm.
Are you sure? You know, but
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, no, that's fine. I say that to her all the time. I said, I still to this day don't know how you said yes. And then we just went with it. Like I don't know if I can say it was God, obviously, because 31 years later, we're still together. Um,
Well, it had to be something. I mean, because most people go through all these growing pains and go through this getting to know the other person before they actually get married.
yeah,
And you just like popped off one day and said, let's get married. She then surprised the whole world, including me right now today, and said yes. And
yeah.
so now you're married and now you're having to like start from scratch in a
Yeah,
relationship, basically.
yeah, it was always like dating again,
That's
but except
crazy.
we're legally,
Yeah.
bound to each other now.
Right.
Yeah. So it almost, I think it almost was a good thing because it pushed us to really start to learn about each other because we wanted this to work. We wanted
Cool.
our marriage to work. We really wanted God to be part of that marriage and to help us grow you know, um, and about a year and a half later, Michelle was born, my baby girl. That's the day I realized that holy cow, this is real. This life is real. I have a living being in my hand. I mean, they handed her to me immediately. I mean, she just popped out and went right into my hands. Like, not even mom got to touch her first. I got to hold her. And that to me turned everything around. That made me, oh man, I got to tighten my belt, strap my boots on, and we got responsibilities now for real. We
Right.
got we got a baby here. Like, you're part of me, and my wife, and we got things to really. So that made me, I think, well, I say tell everyone the greatest gift I ever got with my children. And the greatest thing I've ever done is be a father. If I could be a
Right.
father to 80 kids, I'd be a father to 80 kids. I don't care. I enjoy being a dad. I enjoy the their curiosity, the kids when they're growing, their curiosity, their knowledge. And when they do understand stuff, that light that you see shine in their eyes when they realize, oh, yeah, Pop, I get it. I understand. And you get to see your fruits come to life when your children grow up and become
Oh, yeah.
society's better part of society and not the negative part of society. And it was bittersweet because our daughter was born and not 6 months later uh my wife's father, not even 6 months later, actually a week before she was born, my wife's father was killed in a trucking accident. He was crossing
Oh,
the street and got hit and died instantly. I
my
never got
gosh.
and I never got to meet him. That's another part of my life story. I've never met prior to my marriage to my wife, our dating time.
Yeah.
I've never ever met the father, never been to the house, never been to the apartment. Till this day, I have yet to be there. I've not visited. I've done nothing like that. Um, and so I never got to be with, to meet the dad and just as a man talk to him.
Right.
Uh, because my wife, when we got married, the parents pretty much disowned her. They said, no, we're not going to talk to you or whatever. And so she never got that closure with her dad,
Oh, that's
you
too
know.
bad. Yeah.
So that was kind of sad. And so it was bittersweet. We had our baby, but, we lost dad. And then 6 months later, maybe to 6 to a year later, mom passed away. So she got to hold Michelle for a little while. And I got to meet her. I got to know her for those few months that she came by to see the baby. I got to know who she was and understood her a little bit. Unfortunately, she also passed away. Um, but my parents are still alive and kicking, and they're in love with their grandkids, as every grandparent is. But so yeah, and then not about a year, 2 years later, Sam is born. Sam is my Sam. I love my Sam because it's me in a bottle, shaken up and ready to explode. That's Sam. Sam is just a bottle, like like it's non-confrontational. He's the most non-confrontational person you'll ever meet, but the sharpest tongue and smart as heck. And um, so we had two beautiful children, um, and either way, it was rough raising two kids. I started to work nights, so it was really rough because my wife had them during the day, and then she worked during the day. She had them at night. She worked during the day. I slept during the day. So we literally had to take our kids to daycare or to a babysitter so that I can sleep and she can go to work. And then you know how that is. You have to multitask that way. It's
Yeah.
just the way it was. We had to have a two-person income. There's
Right.
just no way we could survive without that. And this is back in mid 90s, 92, 93, 90, actually 95, 96, you know.
Yeah.
So eventually, my mom and dad bought a house. They bought a two-floor house in Queens, and they were having issues with their upstairs tenants. So they asked us, "Would you mind coming back to New York with the kids and we work out the rent, you upstairs and whatever." I said, "Why not? I'm near my parents. My kids can enjoy their grandparents, New York City."
Sure. Yeah.
And the thing is, I still worked in New Jersey. I still worked in New Jersey. So it was going opposite. I was just living in New York and driving into Jersey, driving back. It was insane. I did that for about a couple of years. Um, and eventually we moved back to New York. And that's when things started getting really crazy with me and Daisy. I was not living the lifestyle I should. I was a coke addict for about 3 years, nonstop. Um, I was, and my wife can be testament to this. I was unfaithful more than once with towards my wife, um, which I'm not ashamed of. If you understand what I'm saying, I am aware, and God made it clear that I was in the wrong, and I did a lot of things that are wrong. Um, yeah, it was a really dark, dark time. We were, my kids still call it daddy's dark days because I would do is I would get home, work, close my door in my bedroom, and at that time I smoked cigarettes. So I would just stay in my room or in our bedroom, listen to music, do my coke, smoke cigarettes. Pretty much that was my night. Unless I wasn't coming home. Third night too, I wouldn't come home at all. I would disappear for a day or two and go on binges.
Yeah.
But I was a very good, as they call a manageable drug addict, alcoholic. Like I still worked. I never was off of work. I always worked. I got up. Sure, sometimes I worked in
Yeah.
the same clothes that I was in the night before, but I never failed to go to work and stuff like that. And what didn't help was the atmosphere. My job was the atmosphere that was making me do all this. It was people at my job that they usually tell don't crap where you eat. Well, I did,
Yeah.
uh, and more than once. And I'm not proud of it. But it was something that as a man I went through and I learned. God put me through that to know that, listen, just because this is fun at the moment, you got to remember what's across. People say the grass is always green on the other side. Yeah, but most of the other side is astroturf. It's not real.
Well,
Okay. What we have, if you have a wife who honors you, respects you, loves you unconditionally, even though all this crap you put her through, and she still, that shows two things. That shows her love for you and the love she has of God and the grace that she has under God. For her to forgive me for the stuff that I've done, I wouldn't. I honestly would never, ever. I wouldn't even be talking to you if you had done what I have done to her. And if she ever tells her story, she can forget it. It would be amazing. She's been my rock. And so anyway, um, like I said, I was drugs and alcohol and just spending money like it was no tomorrow.
Yeah.
thinking that I was living the high life when, you know, and I think the day I realized that I was going out of my mind was the day that I had no money to buy Christmas gifts. I had used the last $100 I had to buy an 8 ball. Okay. This tells
Yeah.
you where I was at the time.
Right. I
And
understand.
I went all the way into the projects. Now you're talking about if you know New York City, the projects aren't a place where you go into unless you live there or have family or something. Not me. I went right into the projects to find my dealer and get stuff and come back. Um, and when I realized that I had no Christmas gifts for my kids, that's when I said, "Oh man, nah, something's wrong. Something's real wrong." And so I said, "You know what? I gotta leave. I can't keep doing this to my family. You know, it's best if I'm not around. They can probably function a lot better. They won't have my energy around or whatever." And I went and filed for divorce. I went and got papers. I went to a lawyer, got the paper. We still have them. Uh, we all she needed was to sign, and I had the kids. The kids were being given to me. All that stuff. You got to understand, my wife is not. She's very trusting. She gives people a lot of the benefit of the doubt, and she is very easy to. And I'm not insulting her in any way, but very easy to manipulate in a certain way because she doesn't have street smarts or she doesn't have that. She hasn't been around that. She's been very protected.
Yeah.
um, so I knew how to sort of maneuver myself around her, stuff that she would never catch on, or she never knew anything about what I was doing until I told her.
Wow.
She didn't know at all, at
She
all.
had no idea this stuff was all happening
I
around. I
mean,
mean, because
she
the
kind of
money's got to be disappearing, right?
yeah, but that's the thing is, when we got married, we made a deal that my bank account was my bank account, her bank account was her bank, which was a
Ah,
bad start already.
yeah, that's rough.
Already, that was a bad start. But remember, we're learning. We had no idea how any of this worked. I don't. There wasn't a manual. We just were doing this, and so as long as I paid the rent, everything else was fine. For me, in my mind. Obviously, I couldn't pay the rent at times because it was going up my nose. But so I realized that I need to get out of here. So I filled out. I went. And a matter of fact, I still passed the law firm that I went to where I live. They're here in the village. So I pass them by all the time. So it's sort of a reminder of where I was and where I am today.
Yeah.
Um, and I thank God every time that I'm not there and I'm here. Um, so the night, and this is gonna, I'm not making this sound like a movie or anything, but my life can sort of be a movie. But that night before I was ready to move out, I had all my clothes, everything ready. My wife had a seizure in bed.
Oh, geez.
Had a massive seizure. Um, I thought my wife was dead. Um, we called the ambulance. She seized up. Um, and when we took her in, they did an MRI and a CAT scan, and she had a tumor on her brain the size of an orange. Because it's been growing there since she was a kid. But you're talking the 60s and 70s. They didn't think of anything. Parents didn't think of taking their kids to have. Back then, there weren't
No.
MRIs or CAT scans like they are now. Those are big, big tests that they wouldn't allow back then like they do now. You can call up and get an MRI in a day. Back then, you waited months to get an MRI because there was only one machine in the whole state, or something like
Right.
that. So she ended up getting brain surgery.
My
Uh,
goodness.
and I thought I lost her. I said, "Oh my God, what am I?" First thing I thought, how am I going to raise these kids? Like, oh my God, I'm just me. And my wife, till this day, I look at her. She literally looks at me right before she's going into surgery, and she goes, "I'm okay if I go. I'm fine. I'm in comfort with God, and I'm happy with you, and you're going to take care of our babies if I don't wake up." And that to me made me like, whoa, that's what faith is. That's what real trust is. Like
Yeah.
you're close to death, pretty much, and you are just at comfort with it. Like you are okay, sad, but you're okay. I saw this peace in her eyes, like, oh my God. And that made me realize, like, I want that peace. I need that because,
My
and
God. Yeah.
yeah, and then she was in the hospital for about a week. She survived. They took it out. Thank God it was what they said was it wasn't in the brain. It was actually on top of the skull pushing against the brain.
Oh,
It
okay.
wasn't part of the brain itself. So that was a good thing. They didn't literally have to go in the brain and touch
Right.
anything, had to scrape whatever. And that took a little bit of, obviously, I couldn't go anywhere. She had to come home, and I took care of her. And uh, that time we had a good support staff with our friends from church at the time. Um, so that made me realize like I can't go nowhere. Well, I can't. In all honesty, as much as I want, I'm not. I wasn't that bad guy where I didn't care for her or love her or anything like that. I just thought it would be best for me not to be around, not to cause her any pain or any anguish or any. But God
Sure.
said, "Nah, you're gonna be here for a minute." I didn't say that he made her get sick, but it was a way where you're needed, you're necessary right now,
Right.
and I believe God, is a big proponent of men in their homes and families and the structure of family. Um, and so that made me become more, I guess, more in tune unto what I needed to do as a man and as a father. And that's the time where I said, you know what? That's it. No more drugs. No more drugs. No more alcohol. No more nothing. I quit my job. I quit my job that I was in where it was uh, they were the ones that were enabling me, because the person I was having an affair with worked there. Um, where I got my drugs were from there. So, it was the atmosphere that I cannot be in if I really wanted to be the right way with God and my family. So, it wasn't easy. It was very hard. I did it. I did not go to a program. I did not do any of that. I just fought it. I gained about 1 million pounds because I ate to compensate. Um, I
Uh,
quit smoking uh, because my daughter, for her, I think it was her ninth birthday, told me, Dad, all I want is you to quit smoking cigarettes. Okay, I quit, and it was rough. And there were times where obviously I failed and smoked a cigarette. Till this day, I have not touched an ounce of drugs. Praise God. Um, I don't look at it in that way anymore. Um, but I look at that situation and that whole thing where I learned from it. I became a better person because of it, not a worse person. I became a better person because I understood that I am not perfect. I am a man. I make mistakes. My mistakes are my accountability, not anyone else's. And that I have a savior that I can go to and say, God, listen, I'm in deep caca right now. I need your help. Um, and my kids were raised. We're trying to get together. At that time, we were really working with each other. She was recovering. I was learning to be a husband, a provider, a real provider at this time, not just handing a check over and going out. No, this is, having conversations with my kids, my wife, trying to get to understand all that. Um, and in the time we were there, we raised our kids in that apartment. My mom and dad they got older and they just couldn't deal with the house anymore. And I will be honest with you, I'm not a homeowner. I'm a renter all my life. I do not have the skill set. And I'm sorry, guys, but I will show my non-manhood right here. I cannot hammer a nail if you gave it to me and told me instructions. No way in the world. I have no handyman skills. If I look at a nail, I'll hit it, it'll crooked. I mean, no matter what I do. Now, give me a computer and I'll build that stuff for you in a minute. Give me webs and I'll do it for you. But manual, like build a desk,
right.
no, no, I lose my mind. Instructions are insane for me.
Got it.
So, and that's usually why I give it to my sister. My sister's the man of the house, my mom says. Because my sister's the one that went. She's gone to. She's skydived. She's done all these crazy things that I would like. No, there's no. I'm not gonna do that. Easier ways to commit suicide, man. No, no.
Okay.
So she's the tough one,
Let me back up just for a second, because before you get into the house and your parents, because you're the thing that is hitting me right now is because I've heard some of your story, but not all of it like this before. And then you're going through this with your wife. I mean, you've got infidelity, you've got the drugs and everything else. You just go cold turkey on all of it.
Hmm.
Boom, I'm handling it myself. No programs, no nothing. No
Hmm.
assistance, right? And I'm just going to handle it. Granted, eating becomes kind of your comfort, your vice, the thing you lean on.
Hmm.
But even that is still amazing. I mean, to get through all that
It wasn't easy, trust me.
with
There were
just
nights
that,
where, yeah, there were nights where I pretty much cursed God and cursed everyone because, you know, I was angry. I got angry because I
sure,
wanted, honestly, I wanted to continue doing the drugs. Because don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the drug. When
yeah,
you're a drug addict, you enjoy the drug.
sure,
I'm not gonna lie. That's why people continue doing it.
right,
Obviously, it gets to the point where it's taking over you instead of you dealing with it. And no matter what people say, you will never get as high as your first time. It's always chasing the dragon, as we say. We
sure,
chase that dragon forever. If you're a drug addict, that's why we die, because we keep chasing high, that high, that high. And we always want to make sure that we reach that euphoria that we met the first time we did the hit.
right.
It never does.
But the
Um,
only thing that you had to lean on then was, a couple of vices, things like that. I know from knowing you that you're very, very strong in your faith today. I mean, your podcast is based on it, so, but you weren't at that point in time. It doesn't sound
no,
like.
no.
So you didn't even
Well,
have that to lean on.
no, well, I come from a Pentecostal background. My family in Puerto Rico are Pentecostal. They go to a Pentecostal church. So when
Okay,
I would stay over there for months in the summer, my mom would ship me to Puerto Rico during the summer because New York's in the summer in the 70s was a hot mess. And I was involved with a lot of things and she wanted me out. So the summers I would spend in Puerto Rico and the people I would spend with my family, they were Pentecostal. So you went to church on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Sundays. So you went to church all the time. So to me, I was young, I didn't understand it, but I knew what they were all about. And obviously, I gave my life to Christ at 17, but I didn't understand it at the time what it was to give your life to Christ. I was just, it's better than where I am now, so let's see how this works. That was my idea.
right.
And so when we were going through all this, I still had that faith, but not that trust. I knew there was
Uh,
God. I
sure.
knew that things happen for what they happen, but I had no trust. I trusted myself to take care of this, um, and I think that I realized that I wasn't trusting myself. I really was trusting God because a lot of these things I couldn't have done myself. I know
Yeah.
that. I look at it now and I said, "Wait a minute! I should have been freaking out the way I should." I mean, I did drugs every day. Sometimes I would go on a 2, 3 day binge, and now I'm here, obviously sweating, starving, angry, pain, but I'm not going to go get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was obviously I would look at my children, my wife, and say, yeah, not worth it anymore. Um, but I think God already had some sort of plan there, some sort of control in my life at the time, because um, there was always that in the back of my brain, like, I'm here, you always had a little faith in me, just keep having that faith a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's always in my head. But I wouldn't, I didn't open a Bible and read it or look anything. No, that was none of that. I didn't go to church or anything like that because obviously I was in a Pentecostal church and that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth on the whole religious kind of thing. Um, and so it was a rough time for me and my wife. Obviously, she's recovering. We're both two recovering. She's recovering from surgery and stuff, and I'm recovering from alcoholic, drug addict.
Right.
Uh, so it was I think that's where we both learned that we can support each other that way. Because in her own little sense, she supported me. When I go to work, she would make sure that I only had enough to get to work and to come home. Money wise, I wouldn't have any money on me. No, back then there were no credit cards. And debit cards were like one, and that was stayed in the house. You just had enough cash for gas. You would bring your own lunch because she wouldn't allow me to go spend money in lunch because then she knows I go in the store and buy cigarettes.
Sure.
And just enough money to, God forbid, to pay the toll because I worked in Jersey. Back then, you paid the toll in cash. We didn't have Easy Pass. Um, and so there were these controls parts of our
Right.
lives I did in order to help me facilitate where I'm at. And with her, obviously, I would come home immediately from work. I would cook. Thank God my mom was downstairs, so she would make dinner sometimes. There was a lot of moving parts and working parts in that time. My kids, they were having a rough time with it because I was one of those fathers that was always involved in their lives. I did everything with them. I My bad. I raised them almost like boys. I raised them boys. I raised them rough, tough. You know, you don't want to wear a dress, don't wear a dress. I don't care. We watched football, baseball. You know, they were on the subways at 6 years old by themselves. I put them on the subway. I said, you got to learn this because I was on the subway at a young age. This is the only way you're going to survive. You learn to be aware of your circumstances. That's
Right.
two things I taught them. Be smart and be aware of your circumstances and always keep your head on a swivel. Always keep your head on a swivel and, stay like they say in the mill, stay breezy, stay frosty, as they say.
Right.
Um, so they
How
had a
did
rough
the,
time about it. They had a
yeah,
really rough time. Because I would not talk to them more, as I was involved because I was high. I was high in the room and just, thinking that I was the man. And there were days I wouldn't come home or I would miss stuff from them because I was on a binge or out partying or being with people I'm not supposed to. So and people don't imagine that it does affect their children. Yeah, it does. They may not tell you,
right.
but they do. They see everything because there are things my daughter and Sam tell me that yeah, dad used to. How the hell did you know? Like, yeah, dad, we knew everything. We saw everything. We just were afraid to say anything.
Right.
Um, so we had a really, really rough time. Um, but I think one of the things that helped us, and people may think it's crazy, but we were forced to move because my parents sold the house because they were at an age where they just couldn't take care of it. And I was telling you, me and my sister do not. My sister, I think, is more of a homeowner than I am, but we've been renting apartments, with one of those people that we'll call the super or, hey, this is broken, come fix it. I have no, I'm not the one to go, oh man, my water's messed up. I got to fix it. No, I'll call somebody to fix that. You know, I think it's just the laziness of being a New Yorker my whole life and not in a
It's
house.
just a lifestyle, man. In the
Yeah.
Midwest, you have to learn that stuff
Oh, for sure.
because there is
That's
no
why I'm so
super.
proud. Yeah, that's why I'm so proud of my daughter, because she learned how to fix a car. Like she sat there and taught herself through
Nice.
YouTube and everything how to change a spark plug, how to change the motor oil and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't even know how to do any of that. And that she goes, Pop, I have to because I'm by myself and these guys will charge me here and there, and I don't have the funds, and I
Yeah.
can, and
Great
she,
thinking.
yeah, and I'm proud of her with that. And that's part of why I believe I taught her to be independent and always be, sure of yourself that you can do whatever you put your mind to, you can do it. And
Right.
gender doesn't stop you. Gender isn't a block like they like to do most women. That, oh, it's a woman. Nah. Nowadays, women, men, you both have the same, you know, opportunities, if not a little bit more sometimes
Sure.
than we do. We had back then.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
we were growing up and stuff like that. Um, so we were forced to move to the Bronx. And if anybody knows the Bronx, no one wants to live in the Bronx
Yeah.
unless the only family I had in New York lived in the Bronx. So I lived in the Bronx for a while. I knew the Bronx, but there's not a place where I wanted to raise my children.
No.
Uh,
I
and at
spent a
that
lot of time in
time,
the Bronx, man, so
yeah,
I know.
and we lived in the Parkchester section, which is a relatively not a crazy section, but it's still the South Bronx. And at that time, my kids were teenagers already. They were 19, 20 when we moved. Uh, so Sam was about 17, 18, and but he worked nights. And being on a subway at 3 in the morning, nothing good happens at 3 in the morning.
No.
Not anywhere. I don't care wherever you are. 3 a.m. is the witching hour. You don't want any, you're not out. You know what I mean? New York becomes crazy. And my daughter, Michelle, was liked to hang out. She liked to hang out. And that we lose sleep. Um, as a parent, you would know your kids are out, you don't sleep. You
No,
worry
you don't. Not till they're home
till they get
safe.
home.
Yeah, 100%.
So and at that time, we were going through financial situations. We were very tight with money because at this time our rent went way up because now we're not paying mom's rent anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Paying real rent now, where we have a lease, a landlord, and all this. And we moved. We didn't want to, but we moved. Um, and things got really bad financially with us. Um, my wife had wasn't able to work for a
Right.
while. My job kind of paid, but it didn't really pay. You know, I mean, no matter how much you make in New York, you're never gonna have enough to pay rent. It's just it doesn't match ever.
Right.
I don't care whoever says here, unless you're making way over $1 million, or I think now the average to live comfortably in New York is about $130,000 a year. That's just to live comfortable, not
Right.
for sure, just comfortable. Um, so we moved to the Bronx, to a sort of a tenement building, and it was just the most craziest, uncomfortable thing in the world. We had people playing music and loud. It's just something we were not used to.
Right.
We lived in a two-family home, or we lived in an apartment, um, and I started to just be very depressed. Just depressed because my children, my wife, I don't want her in this atmosphere. I get scared when my wife goes out to shop. You never know what things can happen over
Sure.
there. A lady on the fourth floor, when before we moved, got mugged on the fourth floor. So uh, just things that I just did not make sense to me in how these people lived or how they were living. How do you not, you have a door that's supposed to close and lock, and you put a thing in to leave the door unlocked. I mean, don't you know that other people can come in and hurt you? Like, I don't, I didn't understand it. I didn't get it. I
Okay.
still don't to this day.
Right.
And we ended up being behind rent. And I ended up going to court to be evicted. Um, but as a man, that is, and I'm going to tell every man that to me personally was the lowest thing could ever happen to me, ever. To show up in court begging for them not to throw it out of your house.
Yeah.
Because my father, that's never happened to my dad. My dad always showed me to be a man, to take care of your family. And to me, I failed. I failed miserably. Um, and there's nothing more embarrassing or how they treat you is in court. You are treated like garbage.
Yeah, you are.
No matter what, even if
Yeah.
you are the right, you are treated as garbage. You're talked down to, you're looked down at, no matter your situation. Obviously, there's people there that were just bucking the system, but then there are people there that are really, as myself, were really struggling. Um, so we, 3 or 4 times court, asking for extension, extension, extension. Um, Eventually, we said we can't live here. We just can't. I can't do this. It's only me working. You know, the expenses are just too much, um, and I just can't catch up to the rent because no matter how much you pay, the next month always comes back. So it's like
Right.
you can't keep kept to the normal rent. Um, so thank God for, and I will tell people if you do it the right way, God provides. He did open up the door where we did get assistance from the state to help pay some of the rent. So it did pay a lot of the rent for us.
Hmm.
I have to pay that back. As a matter of fact, I just finished paying it back maybe about 4 years, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm
Congrats.
paying it back. Yeah. They take a little bit, they really go low. So it's almost nothing. You're paying for 10 years. But the interest is like 3%. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like nothing. Um,
Yeah.
but eventually um, wondering what are we going to do? We don't have nowhere to go. So I had applied for where we are now, which is Stuyvesant Town. They have a lottery to get what they call federally subsidized apartments to assist for people who, because by law, if you build a building in New York, you have to have apartments that are for low income. You have to. You won't get a tax break unless you have at least a floor or about 10, 15 apartments that are supposed to be for rent controlled or rent subsidized to get your tax break. So they here at Stuytown, they have their own private lottery. And I just said, you know what? I saw it. It was funny. I saw it online. I said, why not? Let me just fill it out. I know it's not going to happen because you got to understand. I grew up hanging out in the East Village back in the day when it was just drug addicts, artists, and rock and rollers. That's all there was out here.
Yeah.
And the village was always a place that I loved. And I've always wanted to live here. So I said, why not? And my wife goes, yeah, why not? It doesn't hurt. The worst they can say is no. So uh, I applied. I sent in the paperwork, and we just didn't even think about it. Like, we were so dealing with our situation at the moment, losing our place and figuring out where we're going to live, we're going to move. Um, and by the grace of God, I received an email back then telling me, congratulations, we'd like to offer you an apartment here at Stuytown, blah, 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 blah. We're like, oh my God, thank you, Lord. Like,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna go back a little bit because I want to let people know that at that moment where I was going to the courts and everything else, I got to the point where I had to break down and cry to God, like literally just cry, almost like they do in the Old Testament, rip my clothes off and just throw myself to the ground and just ask God, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that was the breaking point for me. I just broke it down and said, God, I can't. You tell me in your word that you will carry me, right? You will take care of us if we just give everything to you. Well, God, I'm giving you everything, everything. I'm done. I'm done. I can't fight anymore. I don't have an argument, whatever it is. And I'm not, and you know, not maybe 3, 4 months later, we get that letter or that
Yeah.
email stating that they're offering us the apartment. At that time, our oldest Michelle had left already. She moved out. She had moved to Key West, which was another big issue for me as a dad, letting my daughter move out.
I'm sure.
She
Yeah.
was she just turned 20, so he was gone on her own. So we already had that situation. We still had Sam with us, um, and we were excited. We were like, "Oh my God, we got an apartment. We're going to be in the East Village. We're going to be like, oh my goodness." Um, and I think the way I see it, and people can say what they want. I believe there are times where God will give you a blessing, but in order to know, for you to understand that it is His blessing, He'll put something there right before it happens to make sure that you trust that that blessing is His. If you understand what I'm saying, like He'll put something there, like to give you a little bit of doubt and say, well, if the devil, we can say the devil himself will put that little doubt in there and say, nah, you may not even get it. This is just so. What happened was we received not after we did all the paperwork, bought our pay stubs, bought everything, and they're telling us, yeah, your apartment is all this and all that. We get an email stating, due to our credit information, we are not allowed. We can't give you the apartment. What are you talking about? Wait a minute. We did all this paperwork. You said the apartment was ours. So I said, you know what? I was to the point where I can't anymore. I gave up. I'm like, what more? What more do I need? Like, okay, that's it. I gave up. And my sister told me, why don't you just, you're a good writer, just write a letter, figure out how they did this and how they got to their point and then prove that their reasoning was incorrect. Right. So what I did was I took the algorithm and I ran it and and I showed that there was a false positive on the algorithm. It was reading incorrectly the income and it was reading the percentages incorrectly. So, based on their own rules, I showed them and I wrote a letter uh, and I sent it to them in the email and I mailed it. And we waited. We were up to the point where we were about to move out because, we're getting close to being evicted.
Right.
And at that time, the landlord at the time raised the rent another $300. So at that time, the rent was almost $2,000 a month. Um, and you're not counting the gas and electric and all that.
Right. Of course.
That's
Yeah.
not
Everything
part of
else.
your rent.
Right.
So they told, and we waited 2 or 3 months, and eventually I won the appeal. I got back saying, yes, you're correct. We have made the mistake
Very
with
cool.
the apartment. And thank God we moved about, we're going to be here now 10 years. So we moved to one building and we were excited, new place. We're in the city, we're what we love. And we were in a good place at the time. And me and my wife we were good, but there was still a lot unresolved in a sense. a lot of stuff that we just never really talked about, or I can still feel in myself the guilt I felt in myself and stuff like that. Um, and then we, things started to get better, as I said.
And she
Not great.
heals, right?
Yo, oh yeah, amen. Yes, I'm so sorry. She recovers amazingly,
Okay.
and I'm gonna give you another little, tell you a little bit about how my wife is so rough. My wife is also a survivor of two times cancer, breast cancer, because her mom had cancer and her aunt died of cancer, so it's in the genes, and
Holy
she
cow.
ended up with breast cancer twice. Um, and that's why I tell you she's one of those. She's a Ruth. She's a Ruth in the Bible. She is a rough, tough lady. No, Sarah, and I give her all those names that are in the Bible. That she is a fighter. Because I couldn't deal with me. I barely deal with me now. And she deals with me. Because there are times where I can, as a man, can get stupid. We can get really, and I'm sharp mouthed. I can sort of break someone down. I learned that as a defense mechanism of bringing someone down, breaking them down, and knowing their pressure points, as they say. I know where to hit them and how to, and we can do that. Um, we tend to do that as a defense mechanism when you're in the wrong and someone is telling you, you are in the wrong, but you can't accept that you're in the wrong. Um, so we moved here. We were happy with everything, and I got sick. We were all in a good place, trying to make the marriage work. I still wasn't going to church, but I still respected her, her prayer time, her church time, going with her sisters to church, things like that. And I never stopped her from talking about it to the kids, nothing like that. I wasn't that way. I just didn't want to hear it in a sense. I'm dealing with God in my own way. Um, and as we spoke when we had our last interview, I was training. At that time, I become a vegan, trying to live right because in my mind and all that, started reading more philosophy and um, self-help books as everyone does. Um, and I started just to be in that lifestyle and I started to lose a lot of weight. And mentally, I was a little bit clearer, but not too, because if you understand all these self-help books, they're pretty much all they do is tap you on the back and make you feel good. They never give you the reasoning why you're that way. They're just telling you, yeah, you're going to be okay. Okay, but
Okay.
then give me the roadmap to where I'm going to be okay. Just don't tell me I'm going to be okay.
Right.
Anyone can tell you, yeah, you'll be fine. But if you don't kind of like help me out to figure out where I'm missing that I'm not fine, then you're really much just telling me nonsense. You're not telling me anything. You're just okay, you'll be fine. Okay, what does that mean? You
Yeah.
know. So
Now, what are you, because you're still sick with this, right? So what
yeah,
is it you're sick with? Tell us
I
that again.
have. Oh yeah, it's the initials are GBS. The name is Guillain-Barré syndrome or Guillain-Barré syndrome. It's named after the French scientist who, uh, I guess, found it.
Sure.
It is a neurological disease where the myelin sheath of your vein of your nerve system, which is like the outside, gets eaten away because your own white blood count cell thinks it's something's wrong with you. So it's fighting your own white blood cells. So it's eating your own white blood cells. So you have no defense.
Oh,
So it
wow.
everything in your. So I'm neuropathic. I'm fully neuropathic from my legs, from my toes all the way up to about three-quarters of here. I have no real feeling. It's always tingling, like if your hands asleep
Yeah.
and you sat so long that you're like, oh, well, that's me all the time.
Hmm.
Um, so I was diagnosed with that after waking up from being 6 days in intubation.
Ooh.
Um, so they told my wife, make plans. We don't think he's going to wake up. He's really, really sick. We're doing everything we can. And, I had a lot of people praying for me. I had churches, I had family, and I had a mother and a wife who were there. I didn't know what was going on, obviously, because I was out cold. But um, I believe when I woke up, there was a purpose of why I woke up.
Yeah.
Uh, I woke up angry. I woke up pissed off at the world because, I mean, what more? We were doing good, man. I was doing well. I was training for my first half marathon. For a guy who weighed 300 pounds and wouldn't even walk to the store, My wife could tell you I wouldn't even go to the store for her because I just didn't want to walk.
Yeah.
For me to be running a half marathon of training is amazing in itself. I was very proud of myself. I think I was super ego of myself. And which I don't think is wrong to be proud of yourself when you accomplish something. Give honor to God and yourself to give you the strength to do it. But and I got sick. I ended up with some sort of lung issue where my lungs only had like 3 to 5% capacity. When I got to the hospital,
Oh,
everything was blurry. Everything was covered in whatever it was. Till this day, they can't tell me what it was. They
and
still
this
don't
is
know.
this is all when you're finding out that you are sick with this
Yeah. Uh,
disease at
yeah.
this
The
point.
only way they found out is they did two spinal taps. They did one
Oh,
manual, which was the most painful thing in the world,
yeah,
and they did one based on a machine. It's a machine that goes in, it's lasered, it goes in. It's just being uncomfortable when they put that in and everything.
yeah.
And already I kind of knew something was wrong because my feet were numb, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe because I was in the bed so long that they're asleep, but they never woke up.
Oh,
They never got that feeling until I was in the hospital for about 4 months. You're talking recovery and rehab. Um, and they told me, yeah, you have Guillain-Barré syndrome, which in my life is like, what the heck is that? That's all I need. I'm like I don't win the lotto with money, but I win the lotto of diseases. Like, who the heck ever heard of GBS? No one. I don't think that it's very rare. That's why. So it's almost like, for what they told me, and I may be wrong, it's almost like the second cousin of MS.
hmm.
So MS obviously is neurological, a lot more intense, but we do because people who do suffer with GBS, it all comes in different forms. There are people that their eyelids will not move; they'll stay up.
Hmm.
You can't
Okay.
move them, or facial or full body paralysis. There are people that have full body. The reason that they get scared with us is because there is no cure, but it does heal, but like a centimeter a year or a millimeter a year, very small. And they're afraid that because it moves up, it can move up into your parts of your lungs, your heart. So things like that can make it stop,
Yeah.
because all people don't realize neurology, your body runs on electricity pretty much, and when the brain
Yeah.
can't connect, it doesn't work. So,
So you spend all this time taking care of your wife,
yeah,
and then you think you're doing okay, and now she's spending her time taking care of you.
yeah,
So
yeah.
is that basically the secret for a 30-year
I think so. I mean,
marriage?
so
And
much. We've been through, we could have given up many a times. She
right,
had every right to leave. I had every right to leave. Um, but God had a different story with us. I think there was things that were put in our lives to show that we do love each other, no
sure,
matter what the situation is. Whichever way we got together, that doesn't matter. That we
yeah,
got together, that's what matters. There are people that say we love at first sight and they get married. No, it took a little work from us to get to where we are now. It took sickness, it took death for family. It took a lot for us to be where we are now. Are we in a perfect place? No. I will never say that because there is no perfect
there's
marriage.
no perfect place. Right on.
No, there isn't. There's just a place where we are comfortable right now. And we want to get better. We want to make our marriage stronger. We want to make it where we can say, oh, we've been married 50 years, you know.
Yeah,
And we just want to let people know that no matter what the situation may be, whatever you think, you are not, that you're not worth anything or worth being or saving anything. Trust me, if you really love this person and you feel that it's in your heart, it's worth fighting for.
nice.
Okay, we're not asking you to win the fight. You may lose the war. You may lose it. It may not ever work out, but you have to at least try. At least give it a chance. Don't just give up. Because I could have given up a million times. I did give up. I was ready to get divorced. Uh, and God had other plans. Um, he said, nah, what I put together, no one's going to take apart. Um, and that's the way I see it. My marriage now has become extremely easier in a way because we're now both in the same place um, spiritually. Emotionally, we can never be in the same place because I'm a man, she's a woman. We think differently, we act
Right.
differently, but we understand each other. See, I understand and I know her when she's either upset or doesn't understand something. And she knows when I'm in a bad mood or we get to know who we are and how we are and what things can
Right.
trigger us and not trigger us. So,
Well, I love the angle you took today, because you've got so many stories you can tell, brother, and to come on and talk about, hey, this is what goes into, a 30-year marriage
yeah,
is awesome to
yeah,
share with everybody. And I appreciate you taking that tact. As we kind of wrap things up here, it sounds like it is at the end of the day, is it your faith that you both share
yeah,
that got you through it
yeah.
all?
At the end, it's God. It's God. It's our salvation, our trust in a savior. Reading the word together, you know, having that support in church,
Yeah,
having that. It's pretty much, yeah, if it wasn't for God being in our marriage, yeah, we wouldn't be married.
yeah,
I'll be very honest, 100%. We would never be married. We are a example of God's grace in a marriage.
that's
That's
beautiful.
my ending for you. We are God's grace in this marriage because I wouldn't be sitting here without God's grace. I believe you wouldn't be sitting there without God's grace. We have to really believe in that God has a purpose for all of us, be it what we may not understand or want, but He does, and it's gonna be rough. He says, my yoke is heavy, but it won't kill you. It's heavy. Doesn't say it's easy, but it won't kill you. And that's the way I see it. You know, life is going to get heavy. Life is heavy, but we have a savior that we can support, that supports us. He's
Yes.
carrying that cross that we're supposed to carry because
Yeah.
we're the guilty ones. He carried it for us. And so that's my little preaching at the end.
I love it. Normally I hand it off and say, "Hey, have any last words, man?" You went right there and you wrapped it beautifully. So that's the bow on the package today. So um, I love the story. I love you guys persevering through all that. I'm so sorry you had to go through it all, of course, but to be sitting here 30 years later and be on your way to your 50th anniversary, the way that you are. I mean, you keep on going, you're getting there.
Yeah.
And you've got great kids and the whole bit and you're celebrating life. um I'm happy for you. I'm amazed at the story, and you're a blessing, brother, and your whole family is.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming in here sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you. Same here, man. Appreciate it.
Okay, love it. Javier Malave, host of the Compass Chronicles. Tune in, listen to his podcast. When does your podcast come out each week, brother?
They come out every Monday.
Okay.
And then we have my wife's podcast, Faithful Unplugged, which is a 15-minute little Bible devotional that you can listen to on your commute. It comes out every Wednesday, and mine comes out every Monday. There's a new one out today, which is the second part of first part episode. So go in, enjoy it. You can find us on the crossroadscollective.org. You can pull us up there, and I'd love to hear from everyone, and I love to talk. So as you can tell.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. We'll make sure all that stuff is in the show notes, man. Thank you for coming on the show today. I appreciate you.
All right.
All right, folks, that's another episode of the Power of Man podcast. I mean, to have somebody come on here and just be open and honest like that about marriage is really amazing. And to tell his story the way he has. If you're going through issues and in your marriage and you're having some issues, getting along, or, you think maybe divorce is on the table, it's never too late to turn to faith. It's never too late to put things in God's hands and say, you know what, I'm giving my life to you and help me out. And as you heard today, good things can happen when you do that. You're worth it, and you just have to believe it. Until next time.